There was no evidence to show General Salvador Cienfuegos had been in contact with a drug cartel. His arrest in Los Angeles had caused major diplomatic tension. Will Grant reports.
U.S. prosecutors passed their case against him to the Mexican authorities, but the state prosecutor's office in Mexico has now decided there is no case against former General Cienfuegos and exonerated him. That will come as considerable relief to the former minister, who is the highest-ranking Mexican official to ever be arrested on drug-related charges. The US will want to put the entire episode behind them, but it will take time for the bilateral security relationship to heal. Indeed, the arrest was so controversial that it prompted new legislation in Mexico to curtail the actions of foreign agencies on Mexican soil.
Most schools in Ghana are reopening today, almost 10 months after being closed because of coronavirus. Those returning to class are younger students. BBC News.
This is the real story from the BBC.
天天在一起，天天用心听，听见台北的声音。FM 93.1，幸福永远属于你。
公民总主笔。
方恩格时间。
谁当家？
谁当家？你当家？
谁当家？
谁当家？
谁当家？我当家。你当家？
我当家。
到底谁当家？你来当家。Welcome to Residence Messenger on Taipei Broadcasting Station. I'm your host, Ross Darrell Feingold. Our very, very special guest today is Ambassador Jasmine Elise Huggins, the Ambassador of St. Kitts and Nevis to the Republic of China on Taiwan. Ambassador, such an honor to have you here. Welcome to the show.
谢谢. Thank you so much. It's my absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, before we talk about bilateral relations and your work here in Taipei, a lot of our questions tonight will probably be to help our audience learn a little bit more about your wonderful country. But first question I have is, what's the appropriate way to address people from St. Kitts and Nevis? Is it Kittidian or Nevisian? What's the preferred word?
Yeah, I know there's probably some confusion, especially in Taiwan. Well, people who were born on the island of St. Kitts are referred to as Kittitians, and persons who were born on the island of Nevis, they're referred to as Nevisians. So Kittitians and Nevisians.
Kittitians and Nevisians.
That's correct.
And you are a
Kittitian, but would love to be a Nevisian because I actually prefer the island of Nevis.
Oh, really? We'll talk more about that. Sometimes in published materials on websites, the country is referred to as St. Christopher and Nevis, not St. Kitts and Nevis. What's the difference?
There's really no difference, and they can be used interchangeably. And both are in our Constitution. In fact, it's referred to 4 ways in our Constitution. The Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, or the Federation of St. Christopher and Nevis, or simply St. Kitts and Nevis, or St. Christopher and Nevis. Now, with respect to St. Kitts and Nevis, or St. Christopher and Nevis, in the more formal documents, we would use St. Christopher and Nevis, and colloquially or ordinarily, for instance, in the UN. And I think for purposes of shortening the name, many people would say St. Kitts and Nevis. But on the documents that are more formal, we would say St. Christopher and Nevis. And funnily enough, in Taiwan, many more persons would say St. Christopher and Nevis, which makes it very difficult when you have to write it or say it.
What about in Mandarin? Yeah, I'm just kidding. But is there a difference between saying St. Kitts and saying St. Christopher in the Mandarin translation?
Yes.
Or there's only one word in Mandarin for both?
No, if you say St. Kitts and Nevis, it's St. Kitts, Genesis, and if you say St. Christopher and Nevis, it's圣克里斯多福及尼维斯. So yeah, that will be the difference.
And when introducing yourself, which one do you use verbally when you introduce yourself as the ambassador of the country? You say Kitts or you say Christopher?
I try to say St. Kitts and Nevis more because that is more commonly used, not only in St. Kitts and Nevis, but throughout the world, we're known more as St. Kitts and Nevis. So I'm trying to get Taiwan to adopt that particular one, which is shorter and easier to say.
Well, hopefully the audience is listening, because the reason why I brought that up is there's some materials that describe your work here in Taiwan, including on Taiwan government websites and the government websites in Taiwan, where you're referenced and your name appears. It usually does say St. Christopher, I discovered.
I would, it's fine. It's fine. As long as my country is known. That's the most important thing. So yes, if you prefer St. Christopher and Nevis in Taiwan, then please, by all means. As I said, both are in the Constitution, so it's fine.
You mentioned the word federation that appears in your country's Constitution. What does that mean, that the country is a federation?
Well, it means like it's two islands that have come together with one central government, but the other island has internal government. For instance, there's a Nevis Island Administration, and they have ministers of health, ministers of education, etc., etc. But the central government is responsible for foreign affairs and security, and they have a federal parliament. So it is simply a coming together of two islands with the central government, but with the other, Nevis, having its own internal, largely autonomous government.
So you represent them both, though, as the ambassador,
yes, because it's one federation. So yes, I'm not the ambassador of Nevis or the ambassador of St. Kitts. I'm the ambassador of St. Kitts and Nevis, or St. Christopher and Nevis.
and the country is also, in addition to being a federation, it's also a Commonwealth realm. Now, for our audience who don't know what is a Commonwealth realm, would you kindly explain what that is?
Sure. Okay, so a Commonwealth realm is a country that was a former colony of Great Britain, but which is now sovereign. So that's where the realm comes in. We're a sovereign nation, but we are former colony, and the Queen is the head of state, and she is represented in any of those Commonwealth countries by a Governor General. And in our system, in our form of government, the Governor General is appointed by the Prime Minister in consultation with Her Majesty, with the palace. Yeah.
So if, for example, we were to visit your embassy in Taipei, would there be a photo of the Prime Minister, the Governor General, and Her Majesty the Queen on the
Not
wall?
Her Majesty, because we must have a photo of the Governor General, which we do, but not the Queen, because the Governor General represents the Queen, so it's not necessary to have a photo of the Queen. But she is on our currency, and we do play the Queen's message at Christmas and New Year's, I think. Yeah, so we're still connected in that way to Great Britain.
And you just mentioned your Prime Minister, I believe his name is Timothy Harris, and in his New Year's message just a few weeks ago, he said there's an all-of-society approach that has worked very well to make St. Kitts and Nevis a Garden of Eden. What was the Prime Minister talking about?
Well, it's two things. In terms of the reference to an all-of-society approach, it was in reference to the management of the COVID-19, the pandemic. And luckily for us, we did have all of the stakeholders, which is businesses, the local community, the health sector. Everyone was working together, thankfully, to try our best to keep it at bay for as long as possible. And after it came to our shores, like it did everywhere else practically, except for a few places, we did still have very good cooperation between all of society, all of the sectors, to make sure that it did not get out of control. And luckily, I'm happy to say that, we closed our borders as well from March until we reopened them. We opened our borders in October 29th. So for that period of time, there were no commercial flights coming to St. Kitts and Nevis. But since then, we've had all important cases, no local community spread. And I think to date we have 34, but with only like 4 active cases. no hospitalizations, and no deaths. So we're very happy with the cooperation we got from everyone. And then the Garden of Eden remark was in reference to Marcus Garvey, the Jamaican, the icon, who came to St. Kitts on a boat, and upon seeing St. Kitts and Nevis, he said that it reminded him of what a Garden of Eden would look like when he saw the rich, verdant, green landscape. So that is what the Prime Minister referred to when he said that. And when he stepped off of the boat, he also had the same impression. So it wasn't just from far away, it was also from up close.
But there are a lot of beautiful islands in the region.
No, it's the best. No. St. Kitts and Nevis is the best. You just
Does it make the other countries jealous when people from St. Kitts mention this, that your country is the Garden of Eden in the region?
Well, we don't. We have a friendly, healthy competition, but they should not be jealous. They just need to come up to the standard of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Well, hopefully you'll continue to race ahead, though. You won't give him that chance. But that gives us a good chance to tell us a little bit more about the Garden of Eden that you come from, and the kind of because we live in this big urban city of Taipei, and you came from a Garden of Eden. What kind of town did you grow up in St. Kitts?
Well, St. Kitts is a tiny. St. Kitts and Nevis.
In fact, let me interrupt you there, Ambassador, because I actually did see some references in stories, travel stories. The word "small" repeatedly comes up. It's a small island. It's a small country. How do people from St. Kitts and Nevis feel when they see this repeated reference to?
We don't mind, actually. We don't mind being small, because even though we have a physical land space that is tiny, we are big in our dreams and aspirations and what we have been able to accomplish.
You can come out here to Asia. You have a presence.
Exactly. So yeah, we people may refer to us physically as small, but no, we think we're very large. In the Caribbean, there's a saying, you're small, but you're talawa, meaning that you're small, but you're large. So that's how we look at ourselves. So we don't mind if someone says that we're small, really. Yeah.
And the town you grew up in?
Okay. So, well, I would say that I come from the town where my parents were from, which is the last village on the island of St. Kitts, called Dieppe. And it's a fishing village, and my grandfather was a fisherman, and they lived not too far from the beach, and between the house and the beach was this vast expanse of coconut trees. And so we would, when I was little, we would, and we visited, I would walk with my aunts and uncles from the house down to the beach, but stopping on the way to pick up coconuts or to get into any of the naughty things that children would do.
I feel like that was coming, something about Michigan.
Yeah, so, but it was great, and I quite enjoyed one memory that's special to me is going, my grandfather had this Jeep, and in the back of the Jeep it was open, and he would go around to the different villages selling his fish, and he would allow us to come sometimes with him, and my parents would allow me to go, so that was great fun. Yeah, you felt like an adult. Yeah.
Are there any special festivals or holidays that you remember from your childhood?
Mostly Christmas is a very special time of the year for us, and which coincides with our carnival. But for me, it's the Christmas and the different foods that we have, pretty much like the Chinese New Year, where they have these special particular foods that will be eaten on that occasion. And similarly, we would although ours is more Western and lean it towards more the American fare than the indigenous cuisine, which we do have, but Christmas we have the ham, the turkey, the stuffing, the corn pies and the macaroni pies and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a very special memory, which I didn't get to enjoy this year because of the COVID.
Usually you would go home for Christmas.
Oh yes. Taipei is they're still trying to get Christmas together. So I tend to go.
Well, I could sympathize with that coming from the New York City area myself. And you also spent some time studying in New York City.
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
I went to Baruch.
You went to Baruch, which is a very good university in Manhattan. Is there something you remember fondly about Manhattan? Now, be nice, because I am from New York City.
You know what I loved about New York? It's the international flavor of the city. You can find every shade of every race, every country, just everywhere. And I lived in Brooklyn, and that's a huge West Indian community there. So anytime I was homesick, I was able to still go out within 2 blocks and find foods that I would enjoy at home. So that's a very special memory, and that made me like New York. But most of all, I like the theater. I love the theater.
More like the musicals or the operas, or
any of them, but mostly musicals. Love musical theater.
And you also lived and studied in Boston. You went to Tufts, the Fletcher School, and you went to Howard, in Washington D.C., which is a very special school for me because my dad went to dental school at Howard.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, a long time ago, since I'm no longer a young man. But it's very special to me. So, I'm going to put you on the spot, Ambassador. Washington, D.C., Boston, or New York City? Which one did you like best? And you're an ambassador, so you have to be diplomatic.
I know. Yes, I like them all. That's the diplomatic answer. But truth be told, I kind of like D.C. best. I like the history, the architecture. It's wide and open. You have Virginia right there, where I lived, Maryland just over. So you get everything in one small area. Yeah, so I think I like DC best.
You mentioned the West Indian community in Brooklyn when you were living in New York City area. Is the United States now really the center for expatriates from St. Kitts and Nevis as opposed to, say, the United Kingdom?
No, the United States is most definitely, yeah. And most of our people, they tend to go to New York. It seems like Texas is becoming more of an interest for them right now. But yeah, mostly New York.
Yeah, they just a desire to experience the winter.
No, you know what it is. It's like your family is there, and you come to meet your family, and so you settle there, and you're comfortable there. You go to school there, and so you stay there. So the tri-state area, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, yeah.
When you were working at the embassy in Washington, D.C., you were involved in a lot of multilateral initiatives related to the Caribbean or the U.S. relationship with the Caribbean, or international organizations that do work related to the Caribbean. Why are multilateral organizations so important?
Well, we'll go back to one of the original questions, because we're a small nation in a vast ocean, and we believe that there is strength in numbers. And so we had, while I was there at least, a very vibrant CARICOM grouping of ambassadors and alternates. I was not an ambassador then. I was an alternate representative. And we worked so well together to put our views forward and our policies and our positions. And for the most part, because we were 14, we were forced to reckon with within the OAS and within our grouping. So we pretty much got most of the things that we wanted, and it worked well, rather than going alone, because you're just one voice. So we realized that multilateralism worked pretty well for us. And so even now, in terms of foreign representation in Brussels, we have a joint mission with the OACS countries, which is the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, and it's comprised of St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Antigua, Grenada, St. Kitts, Nevis, Dominica. and there's one person who will represent us all. And we have found it has worked there as well. So yeah, strength in numbers.
Are these mostly related to trade issues or
yes, well,
other
in
fields?
Brussels, but in everything, anything that comes up, but in trade, especially for those on that side of the world. Yeah.
Do you find that the United States and the other major countries, they're supportive of the strength in numbers approach? They prefer to deal with the Caribbean countries?
They prefer to pick us off one by one. That's the truth. No, I think it depends on the issue. I think they would approach you if it's something, of course, specific to their bilateral relations, and a lot of the times it's easier for them to get a consensus, a CARICOM consensus, and they can take that forward to their other partners and say, see, look, the 14 Caribbean countries, they agree with us. So I think they probably like the CARICOM approach. Yeah.
Has that included the issue of the day, and you just mentioned it a few minutes ago, working together on COVID-19, where it's also a multilateral approach in the Caribbean?
Yeah, it was, we tried to have like a bubble, but because different countries adopted different approaches. For instance, St. Kitts and Nevis closed its borders. Not everybody did, and not all countries did, and then some countries started having more cases than others, and so we realized that maybe that might not work. And because of the location as well, so for instance, you have Trinidad and Tobago, which is part of CARICOM, but they're also close to Venezuela. They're also close to Latin America, and they have transportation links there, and many people will go back and forth. Then you have a country like Barbados, where you have many persons coming from Great Britain. They would like to vacation, so they have their own issues when they come, and you know their cases started to increase as well. So in terms of the virus, I can say that Taiwan uses the community approach for their assistance to the countries that with which they have diplomatic ties. But in terms of the Caribbean region, we tend to, we rely on each other, of course, but it's more country by country approach, because we different prime ministers adopted different approaches.
Has there been cooperation between St. Kitts and Nevis and Taiwan with relation to the virus? Has Taiwan provided any assistance or donations?
Taiwan has absolutely helped, and let me just say, 非常感谢 Taiwan because they have been like such a huge help. They have provided masks. They have worked with their private sector to send these forehead thermometers and the standalone ones. So you just stand in front of them, and then it will read your temperature. And most importantly, they have provided advice, which is getting all of us together on like a Zoom call, and they have given us like a blueprint for what they did, so that we can take the best of and try to tailor it and adapt it to our situation. So Taiwan has been absolutely like an excellent friend during this time.
That's so good to hear. And people in St. Kitts and Nevis, are they aware when they put on a mask, or are they aware that it came from Taiwan?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because we've had diplomatic relations for it's going to be 38 years this year, and Taiwan has been such an integral part of the DNA of St. Kitts and Nevis from the very beginning. You know, Taiwan was the first country that established diplomatic relations with St. Kitts and Nevis when we became independent in 1983. So, and our relations have just grown from strength to strength. So we're very pleased and we're very grateful for the assistance Taiwan has given us over the years. And we're very pleased to speak as their voice when they cannot speak for themselves.
Well, on that very positive note, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll talk some more about bilateral relations and Ambassador Huggins' work representing St. Kitts and Nevis here in Taiwan. You're listening to Residence Messenger on Taipei Broadcasting Station.
如有长照服务需求、长照特别扣除额问题，请拨打1966长照专线，5分钟内通话免付费。一通电话让长期照顾管理专员协助申请长期照顾服务及解答长期照顾特别扣除额相关问题。以上内容由台北市政府卫生局提供。
不开车，黄色嘟嘟安全多，应酬喝酒不过量，安全回家最上道。爸爸要平安回家哦。
喝酒不开车，开车不喝酒哦。让我们一起尊重生命，拥抱亲情。
亲爱的民众，提醒您定期清除排油烟机内部油垢。烹煮食物时，切忌分心做其他事情，并注意人离火熄。且厨房附近应设置灭火器，操作时保持适当距离。当厨房火灾时，严禁以水灭火。油锅起火也千万不要移动油锅，以免翻覆造成火势扩大延烧。以上内容由台北市政府消防局提供。
亲爱的朋友，您还在吸烟吗？快拿着健保卡到戒烟门诊或拨打戒烟专线0800636363。提醒您，最近兴起的电子烟、加热烟，因为没有浓浓的烟臭味，就被认为无害。其实已经证实，新兴烟品都有二手烟及三手烟的危害，甚至还有爆炸的风险。我是义工蔡依林，所有烟品都 get out。我拒烟，我骄傲。
我是疾管署防疫师陈婉清。防疫期间，如果您是正在居家隔离或检疫的民众，请留在家中或隔离检疫场所，不可随意外出。若您在隔离检疫期间出现发烧、嗅味觉异常、腹泻、呼吸道症状或身体不适，请佩戴口罩，联系卫生局或1922，并依指示就医，不可自行搭乘大众运输。如果您有洗牙、健检等非紧急医疗需求，请先暂缓延后。
有政府，请安心。资讯由疾管署提供。
我是指挥中心疫情监测组组长周志浩。校园请落实防疫措施，请家长注意，孩子发烧或身体不舒服时，赶快就医，并且在家休息。也请大家共同配合，保持教室通风，使用空调时对角要各开一扇窗。餐点分配请由固定人员执行。打赛前请量测体温，清洁双手，佩戴口罩。搭乘学生交通车或大众运输时，也请记得佩戴口罩。
有政府，请安心。资讯由疾管署提供。
家己电台家己主持的。大家好，我是郭文哲，我伫台北广播电台。
It's a wonderful day. Taipei Radio. 谁当家？
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 你当家？
谁当家？
谁当家？谁当家？
我当家。你当家？
我当家。
到底谁当家？你来当家。
Welcome back to Residence Messenger on Taipei Broadcasting Station. Our special guest today, Ambassador Huggins from St. Kitts and Nevis.
Thank you.
We were talking a little bit about bilateral relations before the break. You opened the embassy here in Taipei in 2008.
Yes, I did.
What was your reaction when your ministry said you're going to Taipei to open an embassy?
Do you want to know the truth?
Well, I think our audience would like to know the truth.
Well, the first thing I thought of, do they have a Costco?
And happily?
Yes, they did.
They did.
No, but I thought, well, can I do this? You know, because I was a Foreign Service officer. I was not an ambassador yet, not head of mission. So I was a little bit apprehensive moving halfway across the world without knowing anyone, without knowing much about the country, because at that time, I must admit, I really did not know that much about Taiwan. So, I was a little bit apprehensive about this huge responsibility.
What are the first things you do as a new ambassador who's actually just first opening an embassy, even though, as you said, the countries have had diplomatic relations? They had them for many years, but before that, what's the first thing you do? Where do you start? I mean, I guess you need to hire a staff and raise the flag or put the flag out outside the door. But where do you start as someone who's just opening a new embassy? Because we'll talk about it later, but you have similar experience with Japan as well.
It's a little bit different with Japan, but where do you start? Well, first, I came as chargé d'affaires. And in fact, my government said I was going to be there 6 to 9 months. I was just coming to open the embassy, and then they would have named an ambassador, and then I would return to D.C. So when I got here, I had great help, I must say, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They were very, very helpful, very supportive. So they directed me to the building where you had other embassies located, and I looked at several vacant spaces, and I chose one on the 5th floor. So we're on the 5th floor if anyone is interested to visit. And then I had to contact the Changhua Telecom, but then not knowing the language, not knowing anything, there was a person who was assigned from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to assist me. So he helped me to maneuver through that maze. That was very difficult, getting the phone system set up. I remember now, it was very difficult.
Well, hopefully you didn't have to go open a bank account yourself as well, because that takes a lot of time.
It did, and they needed.
Even though you were an ambassador, they didn't just.
No, I was not an ambassador.
You were chargé
d'affaires.
They still did. They cut through the red tape for it.
No, they did not. They did not. Even today, banking in Taiwan is very complicated, I have to admit. But anyway, so that was another thing. I think that may have been the first thing, to open a bank account, because I couldn't do anything else without being able to pay for services. And then one of the more difficult things I thought was to source furniture, because since I was told that I was going to be gone 6 to 9 months, so that my job, my function was to just open it, set it up, and leave it for someone else. So in thinking about what I should purchase, I had to think of what would have a universal appeal. Whether it's female, whether it's male, what would be durable, what is aesthetically beautiful. So all of those things I had to think about, and I had just a little over 1 month. And the stressful thing is that the Prime Minister was about to come to open it with great fanfare. So I had to make sure that I had all these things done, and during a time when it was Christmas season. So I was so depressed because it was going to be the first time ever in my life that I had been apart from my family for Christmas. So it was rough, I must say. So yeah, you start with the banking, the things that you need to do to pay for your services and the goods, and then you just move from there.
You know. You just mentioned that the audience is welcome to come visit your embassy. You talked about some bilateral initiatives with regard to COVID-19. What are some other bilateral initiatives that are ongoing between the two countries?
Well, right now I'm desperately trying to move or to comply with the mandate from the Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister, and my Minister of Foreign Affairs, which is to kind of pivot a little from tourism to trade. So I'm trying to encourage Taiwanese businesses to take a look at St. Kitts and Nevis as a partner if you're interested in expanding your business. So I'm working with some private businesses and trying to get them to go to St. Kitts to take a look and to consider expanding their businesses overseas instead of just going to Europe or going to Southeast Asia. That's one.
Which industries are
in the health industry, which seems to be the thing to do right now. So that's one of the things where, because previously we had not, we do light manufacturing in St. Kitts Nevis. For instance, we make light switches, dimmers. They're sold in Home Depot, if you know anything about the box stores in the U.S. We make something called resolvers, which is some cable parts and some parts for an airplane, but they're not heavy-duty items. They're small items that can be manufactured in a small space. Because we're small, we don't have a lot of land space to make high factories. But so we do that. So we're looking for partners that are interested in those fields, very, very small. And as I said, we're trying to work with some private companies and speak with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to see if they can point us in the right direction to companies that may be interested.
And are a lot of your fellow countrymen and women living here in Taipei or studying here in Taipei?
Mostly students who are on scholarship. Yeah, we would have right now, I think, about 69, more or less.
Oh, yeah. Well, 69, that's a lot of people for you to kind of look after.
Well, yeah, to pay attention to. I don't quite say look at. Yeah, but other people have many more, so I'm still, you know, it's okay. Yeah, we don't mind having more students here, actually, because we want a educated workforce. So we're hoping that many more students will take this opportunity to come to Taiwan, even on their own, because compared to other parts of the world, I think university education here is quite cheap, and I think it's quite good. So we would like to encourage students from the Federation to come to Taiwan, whether through scholarship or self-pay.
Yeah. We briefly mentioned earlier that you're the non-resident ambassador to Japan as well. For our audience who might not be familiar with the world of diplomacy, what is a non-resident ambassador?
A non-resident ambassador is someone who is the ambassador of another country but does not have a physical residence there or an embassy located in that other country. So many foreign affairs ministries would, in order to maximize the use of their ambassadors, would accredit them to other countries that are close by, or would accredit them regionally. So maybe other countries may accredit an ambassador to Japan, Korea, and maybe, no, I'm not going to say that other countries, not possible, but like in Southeast Asia, because it's in the vicinity, and it's impossible. It will be too expensive to have representation in every country, so you tend to use one person to try to cover as many countries as they possibly can.
And when you presented your credentials, you had to give it to the emperor, not the prime minister.
No, to the emperor.
What's it like meeting an emperor?
It was so funny. No, it was good. It was good, but the ritual and the formality was something that was just very stressful. You were coached on how many steps forward you will take, and then how far you go into the room before bowing, and then taking another few steps.
How many degrees did you have to bow?
You know, it was interesting. Let's just say they would coach you several times to make sure you do it right, and then you have to step back without turning your back, and make sure that you bow again before you leave. It's very, very formal. So exciting, but very stressful as well. And the best part for me was the carriage ride.
Oh, you even got a carriage ride?
Yes, you have the option to take a car or the carriage, and they said that many female ambassadors tend to take the carriage. Well, I was one who took the carriage, I would admit. I loved it. And what was funny is that people were actually on the street waving to you as you passed, because you will take the carriage from this old post office building to the Imperial Palace. So along the way, you're going through the streets, and it's really exciting, really exciting.
And this was all just for you, or were there several countries' ambassadors that day presenting their
credentials? That day, I
credentials?
think there were two of us. I think there were two of us that day. So that was really, really cool. I was waving.
Can I ask you, maybe it's confidential, but did the emperor say anything to you?
Yes, you have a little conversation after you.
So actually, he's a normal guy.
Yes, he is. He is very nice, very nice. I think I'd like to think that he spoke a little longer to me. I don't know.
But he spoke in English or through a translator?
No, he spoke in English. He spoke in English. No. He spoke through a translator. Yeah. But he said some words. No, he spoke in English. Wait.
You were too excited by the carriage.
Yeah, let me think. Yeah, I think he spoke in English, but there was a gentleman next to him who also said, who also translated. Yeah, it was very nice. It was very exciting, really. So not this new emperor, the old emperor.
Oh, the old emperor.
Yeah. No, I mean the former emperor. Sorry. Yes.
After the COVID-19 situation improves, do you have a plan for how much time you would have to spend out of Taiwan, in Japan, for that portion of your responsibilities?
Well, I don't have a specific time, but what we were working on last year, I had gone to Japan, to this town called Amagi, to prepare for the Olympics, where our Olympian athletes were going to be stationed before and a little bit after the games. So I was going to be preparing for that, but I don't know right now what's going to happen. So that was what I was anticipating that I will be doing a lot, mostly 2021 now.
Well, hopefully there will be an Olympics and the team will attend.
I hope so. I know they were very anxious to stage the Olympics, and a lot of preparation had gone into it. And as I said, by my visit to this town, and they were so excited, so I know there was huge disappointment, so I'd like for them to be able to do it.
You mentioned the stress of meeting an emperor, but President Tsai visited St. Kitts and Nevis in 2019, I believe. Even though you're based here, not organizing the back at home. But was that also something that took up a lot of your time? It was very stressful to prepare for a presidential visit?
It was. I actually went early to help our ministry prepare. So I left Taiwan in advance of President Tsai's arrival, and we had to work very closely with the Taiwanese embassy, who also wanted to make sure that everything went well. So they had their issues that they had to deal with, and we had to deal with our issues as well. Their security came in advance. Our security had to work with them, and sometimes I had to be the go-between the two of them to try to show in the St. Kitts side how things are done and what they would like to have done during the visit, and to explain to the Taiwanese, you're in the Caribbean and you're in St. Kitts Nevis, and this is what we would like to have done too. But at the end of it, we all wanted her to have a really good time, and I think she did the best time of all the countries
on her trip.
Yeah.
Do you think she would say that because the people are nice, or because the weather was great, or did you prepare a special, something really special for her to eat, or a special gift? Which is it that makes it the best?
A combination of all. A combination of all. But no, because the visit of President Tsai, it was the first time that a president of Taiwan had visited Nevis as well. So that made it also very special. Logistically, it was a little bit difficult because we had to get the water taxis to transport her, and that has its own issues with respect to security and stuff. But I think she was very happy to have been the first one to do that, because it's a federation of two countries. You can't visit St. Kitts alone and say you visited St. Kitts and Nevis. So I think she was very pleased that she was able to visit St. Kitts and Nevis, and I think that added to the memories that she would have had.
Ambassador, we're almost out of time. Are there any upcoming activities, cultural activities, things of that nature that the embassy has planned that you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, the one that readily comes to mind is the Lantern Festival. So we participated last year in the Taipei Lantern Festival. The first time we did it was Taipei, and then I realized that there are many more eyes and many more views on my country if we did the National Lantern Festival. So then we did both. So this year we're going to do the National Lantern Festival as well. But I'm not sure about what we're going to do in terms of the display, but we're certainly looking at participating in the National Lantern Festival this year.
Okay, so attendees to the Lantern Festival,
please come and see the booth, the St. Kitts Nevis Lantern at the National Lantern Festival in Hsinchu.
Ambassador, thank you so much for joining our show today. I hope our audience was able to learn as much about St. Kitts and Nevis as I did. Again, thank you so much. We're so grateful you could join us today.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'll be willing to come back anytime to talk more about my lovely country. And thank you, Taiwan, for all of the help that you have given to my country and my people.
Thank you. You've been listening to Residence Messenger on Taipei Broadcasting Station. Have a great weekend.